Brilliance Audio presents The Season of Comfort by Gore Vidal, performed by Donna Postel and Will Damron.
The summer was green and damp, and the grass was moist all day long, and there was a green-gold haze between the dark trees. The house stood on a hill and looked very white and new in the sun, though only the paint was new, for the house had been built before the Civil War, and the family that had owned it then owned it now. And this family, the Hawkins, were even wealthier now than they had been before the Civil War, a fact that was vastly irritating to the other old families. The house was as well cared for as the houses the rich Northerners had bought. The Northerners had been coming south ever since the World War. But now, even the Hawkins family suffered from the heat. The house was cooler than most houses, but not cool enough. The ceilings were high, and the heat rose to the ceilings, but there was so much heat that it remained on the floor, too. Hot, billowing heat. The slightest movement made one sweat. The vice president swore at the heat, but wisely stayed in his chair on the shady terrace. His wife was a lady from an old Southern family, and she did not sweat. She barely even perspired. But their daughter, Charlotte Giraud, cursed the heat and wondered for the 100th time if a sunstroke could cause a miscarriage. After breakfast, a hot breeze from the river came up over the fields of the estate, through the woods of the estate, and climbed the hill to burn the Hawkins. The vice president sat in his chair on the shaded terrace and fanned himself with the newspaper he was trying to read. He swore gently and wondered if he should go inside, where it might be cooler. But immediately it occurred to him that he'd probably stick to the seat of the chair, and this thought so depressed him that he sat back in his chair, a rocking chair, and wished plaintively that he had gone to Maine for the summer, as the family had originally planned. Of course, Charlotte was going to have a baby, and her mother, his wife, refused to leave her daughter, and further insisted that the child be born in the house. It made no difference to her that most of the Hawkins, including the vice president, had been born in hospitals. In her family, they were born at home, until that home had been sold to a New York broker in 1912, just before the war. The vice president was out of office then, and no one in the family had been quite wealthy enough to save her family's Carolina estate. He thought of this as he sat in the rocking chair, rocking quietly, careful not to strain himself, careful not to sweat. The June sun reflected brilliantly on the green grass, and green-tinted sunlight struck him in the face. He stopped fanning with the newspaper, but he didn't want to read. He disliked Coolidge, and the paper was full of Coolidge today. And further, he was not really interested in politics today. He was only interested in the heat, which was pressing all about him, which refused to be warded off by his white suit. He thought of his first grandchild, who would be born soon, and he thought of death, for one was closer to death when one had grandchildren. It was something primitive and mysterious. He felt it in his stomach, but he would never admit it to anyone. He wondered when he would die. Would it come suddenly? A stroke? His president had died that way. Or would it come slowly and gradually, after a long illness? He shuddered in the heat. If his grandchild was born dead, he would live longer. He knew this, but there was nothing he could do.